I mentioned to you earlier that State of Origin 1 kicks off tonight in Brisbane. I'm bringing you the show from Brisbane tonight. Lucky me, I'll get to go to the game tonight. But apart from, of course, the Origin clash, rugby league's in the news a bit at the moment. Around the game, some of the formalities around the game and what's happening with the national anthem at tonight's Origin opener has been the centre of some controversy. Also suggestions that rugby union player Israel Folau, who of course has played in the NRL before, might be looking to resume his NRL career. I took up both these issues just a few minutes ago with the NRL Chair Peter Beattie. Peter Beattie, thanks for joining us. You must be excited about tonight, but what about the anthem? Do you approve of players deliberately making a point of staying stumm during the anthem?
Look, just a few players, there's 4, they've indicated they won't sing, and frankly, look, we're supportive of them. The bottom line is we're an inclusive democratic society. Our game is inclusive. Look, I'll be singing the national anthem in the stadium, which will probably clear a lot of people away. All I'm saying, Chris, is that people should respect their right not to. They should respect the people's right to actually sing it. Look, frankly, some people say, why do you play the national anthem at a competition between 2 states? I always like to see it played, but look, we're not going to make a big thing about it. We respect people's right to have a different view, to be frank.
But you say you're inclusive. Isn't it divisive to deliberately shun the national anthem? They're making a statement of division by doing that.
Well, what they're basically saying is, and look, I'm not a spokesman for them, they can speak for themselves, but what they're basically saying is the national anthem doesn't represent them and it doesn't acknowledge their history. And look, we've got, if you look at the game of rugby league, Chris, we've got Islanders, they're about 48-49% of our players, Indigenous Australian players, they're around about another 11%. We're about 60-61% of our players are Indigenous. So for us, it's an important thing to respect their culture, respect their views. And see, they haven't really been grandstanding about this. They've said, when asked, look, what are you going to do? Well, I'm not going to sing. They're not sitting down, they're not dipping their knee, they're just actually not going to sing. Well, frankly, a lot of people don't sing the national anthem anyway.
Many of them just hum it. But
well, not all of them know the words.
Exactly, but we all know the words Australians all let us rejoice. So how does Australians all exclude anybody?
Well, look, it's how they feel. It's not important how I feel in all this. It's important how they feel. And our game has taken a view that we'll respect their right not to sing. Now, we also respect the right of people to sing. And I just say, look, let's be respectful for everybody. Let's not turn it into World War IV. Let's get back to the footy, which is what's really important. But our view is we're inclusive. If people feel strongly about it, we respect their right to be silent.
Well, I'm hoping to be there tonight, so I'll find out.
We're going to educate you about rugby league.
You do indeed, but I'm expecting that you'll have a welcome to country ceremony as well, wouldn't you?
Yes, we will. Yeah, that'll be part of it.
What if somebody wanted to boycott that?
Well, people don't have to participate. I mean, they're in the grandstand. I mean, it is acknowledging, I think, everybody. That's what the welcome to country does. That's simply we're saying welcome. I mean, it's pretty hard to sort of excuse yourself when somebody says welcome. I say to you, welcome to Queensland. Well, you can't say, well, nick off, I don't want to be welcome. That's a bit hard.
Well, this is my point, I suppose. I find it very disappointing because, sure, we can all argue about the words of the national anthem.
Sure.
But, you know, we've come to this happy place where it's Australians all let us rejoice, and we have a welcome to country ceremony with special recognition to the first owners, the first inhabitants of this country. So you couldn't go out of your way to be more inclusive, yet some people still want to be divisive.
I tell you how I see it, Chris. The reality is, one of the things I love about our country is that we're a democracy. We've got people with strong views. I mean, I've known you long enough. You've always been a person of strong views. I don't always agree with you, but I respect your views. What we're simply trying to say is, look, as long as someone is not disruptive and they're simply not going to sing, then we just need to respect their right. We respect people's right to sing. We try and be inclusive. We live in a very complicated and even getting more complicated society. The key to making that work is respect. And that's what my view is, and that's the game's view.
Yeah, now what about one solution to this that's being proposed and quite widely embraced is instead of having the phrase young and free in the song, just change the lyrics to strong and free. Does that make sense, or are we fiddling at the edges there?
Look, people can make changes to the national anthem. Look, I've been around a long time because I'm getting old. I actually voted in the ballot that took place years ago about the national anthem. I got to admit, I didn't vote for the current one. I voted for Waltzing Matilda. Right?
Yeah, wouldn't be bad.
Well, and I was stunned when I lost. I thought all Australians are going to vote for Waltzing Matilda, and I got done by the hymn, right? So that's our national anthem.
Then there's the old Seekers one about we all
there's a lot
Australians,
There's a lot of good alternatives. I got to say, this wasn't top of my list, but anyway, you go with the majority view. And so what I'm really trying to make the point about, Chris, is these words change. What's important to find things that brings us all together. Look, I've lived overseas for 7 years in the US. I've travelled the world like you have. This is the greatest nation on earth. The way to keep it that way is to be inclusive. If we change a few words, it makes everyone more involved in the national anthem. Look, frankly, I'm not opposed to that. I'm no great wordsmith, so it's not for me to say whether it's right or wrong. I just want something that unites us, not divides us.
Speaking of inclusion, what about Israel Folau if he wants to come back to NRL? Why wouldn't you welcome back such a great champion?
Well, good question. I'm pleased you asked me that, because here's a point of difference. Israel has still got his tweet online. He hasn't taken it down. And that's why when I talk about inclusive, I mean you respect everybody. Israel won't take Israel Folau hasn't taken the tweet down. So realistically, and this is what rugby unions view, and of course he plays rugby union, he doesn't play rugby league.
Sure, but he's played league, and there's a suggestion
and then he went to AFL,
want to go back. Yeah,
he's had a crack at everybody.
You'll end up playing soccer if you're not careful.
Well,
but here's the point. Right?
That could be a promotional opportunity for soccer.
You talk about inclusion. I mean, here's a Christian man expressing Christian teaching. Is the NRL excluding Christians who will publicly profess their faith?
Chris, no. Look, I'm a Christian, I read the scriptures. I have a very clear view of what Jesus was in terms of inclusiveness and what he preached. The view, why we are concerned about Israel, and this is a rugby union problem, I just stress, is because he's actually, by his tweet, trying to exclude another group of people in the community.
Well, he's saying they're sinners. Now, what if you had Muslim players in the NRL who are saying that homosexuality is against God's teaching?
Our view would be the same. Our view would be the same.
Ban them from the game for saying that publicly?
But hang on, he's not in our game. He's in rugby union. But people have said, look, he may want to come back. We don't support anyone who wants to be exclusive, exclude other groups in society. And the bottom line is, Israel's still got the tweet up. I mean, these suggestions about him coming back, Chris, when he's still got it up there, he's saying to this group of people, well, you're not welcome. And that's in essence what he does.
No, he's actually what he actually says is you're a sinner, and unless you repent, you'll go to hell. I want you to embrace Jesus' love. Now, I don't agree with that, but that's his firmly held religious belief.
But he can practice those views within his church. That's entirely what his views are, and in the same way that I can in my church. But that's entirely, if he wants to go and preach that within his church, that's fine. Our view is don't try and exclude someone else. That's our view simply.
So why exclude him from your sport?
Because he is seeking to exclude others, is our view, right? I'm explaining what our view is, Chris. At the end of the day, this suggestion about him coming back, he hasn't taken the tweet down. So at the end of it, I don't see how we can possibly change our view. I stress it was a rugby union issue. It's not a rugby league issue.
Gee, I don't know. It seems very fraught with me, and it's exactly the sort of issue that's going to get caught up in religious discrimination laws if we see them.
Well, I hope it doesn't, because, look, as I said, Chris, he can practice his religion, and this is not an anti-Christian thing. As I said, I have Christian views.
But you're effectively saying you can practice your religion as long as you do it quietly.
No, he can do it as loud as he wants, but as long as he doesn't do it within the game. Our game is really simply, we want everyone, regardless of their circumstances, to play our game. We don't want somebody saying, you can't, you are treated differently because of an old view. And I don't want to get a debate about the Old and New Testament, but this is a very Old Testament view, right? As a Christian, I can say that. That doesn't, in our view, signal inclusiveness, which is my view about it.
Well, speaking of inclusiveness, again, I'm going to try and educate myself.
We're going to educate. Well, we're happy to educate you.
I'm very lucky. I'm looking forward to getting to the game tonight. Now that you're the NRL chairman, I suppose you don't have a horse in the race. You're allowed to barrack in Origin, sure.
Well, I'm neutral on games, but not when it comes to State of Origin. I might live in Sydney these days in Balmain, but I'm a Queenslander to the day I die. Go the Maroons.
And you reckon they'll get there?
I think they will. Look, it's going to be great. Look, the Blues have got a fantastic side, and their coach is a real master of building the psychology. But Kevin Wilder's the Queensland coach is not bad either. You'll love tonight.
I will love tonight. Are you worried at times that the spectacle of league on the field is overshadowed by sex tape scandals and court dramas. Just how do you get... There's too much of that, isn't there?
Well, Chris, we've had a very disappointing off-season, which is why we've taken a very hard line. You've seen the no-fault rule that we've brought in, and basically that and new disciplinary procedures have cleaned up the game. Since they came in, we haven't had an issue, and we're determined to make certain that that is of the past. And I think you've seen over the last few months we haven't had problems as a result of those new rules. They're tough, they're hard, but they're about the future of rugby league.
Well, let's make sure the game is centre stage tonight. Can't wait.
By the way, good to see you in Queensland.
Yes, wonderful to be here. Good to see you.
Enjoy it, Chris.
Cheers,
Thanks, mate.